All right, but I do see one from Blake Bot J, and he says, "Was Brock Lesnar's retirement already discussed?" No, we did not discuss that because that just broke like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I wrote about that, and I gave pretty much what my take on it was. I thought it was a smart decision on his part, because for me, um, if you just if you weigh the two promotions and the two businesses, right? Brock made a reported $12 million last year with the WWE, working a part-time schedule, not getting punched in the face for real.
Hmm.
Okay. So you're gonna have to now go and work 6 to 8 weeks of hard, real training to get prepared for one of the greatest fighters that ever lived,
Yeah.
who is probably going to knock you out.
Well, I felt like that was definitely going to be a ritual sacrifice for Brock Lesnar,
Yeah.
and a retirement pageant for
Yes.
DC. I don't
Yes.
think Brock had a snowball's chance in the hottest corner of hell of beating DC. I really didn't.
I don't think
Uh,
so either.
I thought he would have got mauled, like he was covered in honey and somebody let the bears loose.
Yeah.
So him avoiding that situation to, you know, do the fine work at WWE is a smart move. He's going to be compensated well for it, and it's a good win for WWE in their little friendly talent battle with UFC. The only thing that's disappointing for me is that as a DC fan, I wanted DC to have a show match to go out on. I don't want them to dig up some corpse out of Bellator or something like that.
Well, no, he's
Get him to
already
fight.
he's fighting Stipe
I
Miocic.
know
But
he's
yeah.
supposed to fight Stipe, but I have zero interest in a rematch of that fight because it's another one of those lose-lose scenarios, right? If Stipe takes another L to DC, we basically just lose luster on Stipe that he could maybe get against somebody else. And if DC loses, he goes out on a bad note. So we already seen this fight. Maybe DC beats him again. He beat him last time reasonably convincingly.
No,
So
very convincingly.
yeah, I'm being kind, but being nice because I like Stipe. He's a good guy, a good fighter. But I don't really want to see that fight again. It's one of those fights where I don't really. It's like Conor and Habib. I'm good on that.
Well, I'm good on Conor Habib for a different reason.
Yeah, but
I'm good
I
on
just mean
Conor
from a
Habib. I just
martial
don't
arts
trust them.
standpoint. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't have a martial arts curiosity about Stipe and DC. So, and I would rather see Stipe come back against somebody else and build himself back up going forward, not lose to a guy who's just kind of having a farewell paycheck. That's
Yeah,
the only bummer for me with the Brock thing.
I mean, I would have liked to see DC get that huge, great payday that he deserves. That for sure. I would have also, I mean, like to see Brock take a L. I'm not a Brock fan. I'm not a Brock fan at all. And I'm not pleased that he's coming back to the WWE as somebody who is also a fan of that promotion as well. So I'm not pleased with that because he's not good for the WWE either. So, yeah, I wish Brock would just go to his ranch and just be rich and live a long life,
Just
live a long
get
life,
TV.
and just be great and by yourself.
Uh,
Yeah, that's what I wish would happen, but it's not going to go that way. So yeah. All right, another question. Are we doing okay, no, I thought we was going someplace else. All right, Sean Singletary says, how did you both get into your chosen professions? Keep up the great content.
okay, well, I draw professionally,
Hmm.
and so if you're asking how I got into drawing professionally, I got hired at a pretty young age when I was 19 years old to work for a company, a web animation company. If you're asking how I got into comics, I was doing toy boxes for GI Joe,
Hmm.
and which was just a dream job for me. I loved it.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and I did that for several years. I got to make up a bunch of GI Joe toys. It was a lot of fun. And they did a GI Joe comic, and they needed an artist. And since I was already drawing GI Joe, it was a pretty good fit for me to get in. That's how I first started doing comics.
That is pretty awesome. I never knew that. That's pretty
Thank you.
dope. Okay, for me, I have loved sports my entire life and loved gaming pretty much just as long too. When I was a kid, my mother used to say she'd be feeding me in the high chair, and I would do my arm like this, and I would not eat until sports highlights went off. So I've always been that guy. But I didn't grow up with the internet, so I didn't, getting on was much difficult then. And I didn't even really, African-American kid growing up on the south side of Chicago, I never thought that was even something that could be a career. But I'm not a traditional 9-to-5 type of a worker. Has never worked for me. So it was, what was it, 2006 or 7? I lost my job, and I was already trying to do YouTube, and I was already had my own website. I was trying to post sports video game stuff on the website because I found Operation Sports just on a whim. I was searching for something else, and I found Operation Sports, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, there is somebody out there like me. This is what I do. This is me. And it really put a battery in my back that I could do something like that. So I started my own website. It was called franchiseplay.org. And I would post my little stuff up there, and I would try to go into forums and drop my little article links in, and it was tough. But when I lost my job, I just I started going full in, and I said, you know what, let me send out this the Bleacher Report was letting people, submit sample writings. So I said, let me go ahead and put mine in, and I put it in, and they said, we'll take it. We'll let you write. And I said, okay, cool. And I started writing just one piece here or there. And then they said they liked my writing, and they asked me to come on and cover the Chicago Bulls, which is, of course, right in my alley. So I covered the Bulls for about 3 months, and then the guy said he was the editor at the time, then extended that out to covering the NBA, and they liked that. And so then I became a part of the breaking news team, and we started doing that, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And right about the time I started to get I had kind of outgrown the Bleacher Report and where they were, I got offered the Forbes thing, and it's been a great blessing. It's been a great
Yeah,
blessing.
shout out to Operation Sports, where so many of the people in our community met and came from or were inspired by.
Yeah,
Shout out to Steve Noah. Follow him
he
on
is the
Twitter.
man. He is the
Millennium.
man.
Follow him on Twitter. Still love Operation Sports. I don't have the time to be going on there arguing with folks. I do enough of that right here with you guys. But yeah, still love Operation Sports and what they do over there and have done for the sports gaming community.
Yeah, Steve's the man, man. Without Steve, I wouldn't even, there's no way I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing, because I would have never known or thought that it was possible. And I had an opportunity to meet him one time. He doesn't do a lot of public stuff. He's like Al Heyman or something. But I had an opportunity to meet him one time, and in the brief little moment we had, he was really cool, really nice. I didn't even get a chance to tell him. I've told him over Twitter. We talk, here and there sometimes. So I've told him about how much his impact has meant to me. But yeah, just a real cool dude. All right, so we also have with how sports and all around pop culture are covered today. Do you think that would have done more to help or hurt the legacy of some superstar athletes? I definitely think that there are a few athletes who may have had a really tough time today if they were, I mean, it's hard to say because you never know I mean, there's a human being, so they would adjust perhaps and do some of the same types of things, but not considering the person adjusting and just some of the things we know about certain players, certain athletes, Mike with the gambling and stuff like that. That kind of stuff would have been really, it could have been a problem. But Mike's a smart guy, so you would have to think that he'd be different. He'd know the line, just like
Yeah,
right now, he knows the line now,
yeah.
so
People tend to do what they get away with, and
exactly.
the thing that happens with along with social media comes the dangers of social media, and then people warning you about the dangers of social media, and then people paid to warn you about the dangers of social media. So I don't think you can take a locker room camera and just put it on Magic Johnson back in the 80s. You have to also take the entire mechanism that goes with it. So if you're asking if more of that stuff just came out public, then yeah, but that was back in the day where if nobody said nothing, nobody knew nothing. Whereas now there's cameras everywhere. So every conversation is recorded by camera or microphone. So people change their behavior because they know that there's very few secrets left in the world.
I would agree. You can't have one without the other. M71408 says, "What are your top 5 NFL running backs of all time?"
Am I first?
You can go first. I went first on the last one. You can go first on the
Okay, Walter Payton, probably number 1. Number 2, Barry Sanders. I didn't get to see him, but from the highlights and everything else, I have to say Jim Brown. I put the first 2 guys not because they're better than Jim Brown, but because I got to see a lot of their stuff. I would put 4th probably O.J. Simpson, and then last I would probably have Adrian Peterson.
I would pretty much be really close to that, except for I would have Jim Brown number 2 behind Walter Payton. I would have Barry Sanders 3. I think I'd have OJ 4, and then I would have
I thought about other guys. I
honestly,
thought about
honestly,
LaDainian and Marshall Falk, but I think
that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say Marshall
AP's
Falk.
too much of a monster though. Like
But
AP.
I would say Marshall Falk because Marshall Falk didn't have any weaknesses.
No.
AP had a glaring weakness. He was not a good receiver.
Right, and that's the thing though. Like when we say running back, do we mean at running? Because
No, we mean
okay,
that
just
plays the
like
position.
overall
Just
playing the
overall play the
position.
position.
Yeah, because Marshall Falk, I really do. He was a great runner, but he was in that Westbrook era, that Brian Westbrook era, where as a tailback you could really catch a lot.
Well, I don't think it was the Westbrook era. I think it was the Falk era. I think Brian Westbrook was living in the Marshall Falk era.
I'm saying that at that time it was, that offense, because it's a copycat league, and that offense was something that the league was into at that time.
Well,
Whereas
and it was really originated before them though with Roger Craig with the 49ers. The first dude would ever 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving in the same season. So it kind of started with him, the West Coast offense, throwing the ball to the backs more. But Marshall Falk took it to another level.
Yeah, but if I had to choose which of those 2 players to just put on my team and build around it, I'd probably take AP because he's just a freak monster. And I know if I have a great quarterback and great receivers around that, you can't load up on him because he ain't been on,
See, here's my thing. Here's always my thing about running backs. First of all, I think running backs are generally the most overrated position in football. If you look at it, if you just take a look at how often do you ever see a truly great running back win a Super Bowl? It's rare. It's rare. Walter Payton won. When Walter Payton won his Super Bowl, he was not even anywhere close to his prime. Walter Payton's prime is 75 through 77. It was 76 through 79. That's his absolute prime. That's when he's just, oh my God, right? No Super Bowl at that time. He had to win. He won one in 85 when he was not nearly the same guy. As great as Adrian Peterson was, no Super Bowls. As great as Barry Sanders was, no Super Bowls. And most people will tell you who's the best running back between Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith. Barry Sanders, more spectacular of an athlete, the whole 9. But Emmitt won the Super Bowls in a less spectacular fashion. Emmitt's an underrated guy. He's not in my top 5. He's an underrated guy because of his ability to pass block. He's great. His absolute, the rarity of fumbles for him, and just like he didn't do things spectacularly, but very rarely would you see the first guy bring Emmitt Smith down. Now, it wasn't going to be because he juked him, but it was because he plowed through a little bit, got an extra 1.5 yards, 2 yards. He was just a winning football player. And I think he was actually a little bit more of a winning football player than Barry Sanders, although Emmitt ran behind the greatest offensive line of the era, and that's a huge aspect of it.
And behind that offensive line, you got Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin and everything else.
But Troy Aikman is actually a slightly above average quarterback who was very smart and had all kinds of weapons, and he had like I said, the fantastic offensive line. I would take a great offensive line over a great running back every day of the week.
I totally agree. But the question was about running backs. R5 was pretty much the same.
Yeah, for the most part. I put Marshall Falk in there though.
Because I felt like AP and Marshall Falk was kind of a pick 'em. But again,
honestly, I think Marshall Falk should probably be higher on my list. Honestly, he probably should be more like 3rd. To be, I really, just as a guy who affected wins, losses, I don't know if there anybody besides Walter Payton
It's
affect
hard
wins,
for me to
losses more.
separate how great that offense was in St. Louis.
Yeah,
You know, they have so many weapons.
but he was the
Um,
best player, and he was the most versatile weapon.
he was, and that's why I said, you know, he's kind of on my list. You know, I wash between whether I want to pick him at AP, but I just kind of go with the freak.
Yeah, AP's a freak. I mean, he's the most. AP was just so fun to watch. He's just so fun to watch, or is
Yeah.
so fun to watch. He's not retired, so
Right,
uh,
and part of me thinks like if you put AP on the St. Louis Rams, they might have won. You know,
it
two
won't be
more
the same
championships.
because you need that receipt. The fact that you could split Marshall out wide and create
Yeah,
those
no,
mismatches
yeah,
was
absolutely. I think that was
huge.
important.
It was huge. All right, the next one is with many seeing this as possibly, this is from 1989, as the end of the Warriors dynasty with them possibly losing two key players. What team is best set up to take the mantle?
The Golden State Warriors. I don't see any end of any dynasty. Um, the problem with Milwaukee is they are not a free agent destination. So while Milwaukee will always be a strong team and could possibly, I think Milwaukee will always be vulnerable to a team that has more All Stars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, they can beat those teams, but dynasty means you win all the time, basically. I think the Golden State Warriors, even if they lose, and they said two. Who's a two?
Say it again.
Who they said
Losing
losing
two.
two.
Well, Durant and Clay.
Clay ain't going nowhere.
But I mean, he said possibly, which is
I don't.
accurate.
We've seen no evidence that it's.
I mean, he's a free agent, so
It's also possible that the Infinity Stones is real, but not likely.
but
Not probably not though. I think they were made up by Jim Starlin. So
I don't know.
Clay,
I don't think that that's
Clay has
something
said
that
over and
you
over and
know.
over, I ain't going nowhere. Just write me a check. I'm gonna be right here. I don't think Clay is going anywhere. So I'm gonna operate under Durant is probably leaving, and the greatest shooting backcourt in history, will be intact, and some of the smartest front office people in the league will fill out that roster, and they will still be the Golden State Warriors, just like they were before Kevin Durant got there, except now they'll have to be good all the time instead of having three of your All-Stars be able to be mediocre and still win.
They would if Durant leaves, they're not the same Warriors team.
They're not the same, but they're still
I don't,
great.
and I think they're still a good team, but I don't
You think
because
they're better? You think they're worse than Portland? You think they're worse than Denver? You think
not
they're
worse.
worse than
I
Boston?
don't think they're worse. I don't think they're worse than Portland, but I do think Denver is serious. And I think the Rockets are still serious. I think Milwaukee is flat better than them without Durant. Flat better. I mean, of course, it depends on who they replace him. When I mean, if
Right,
Kawhi Leonard
right.
walks over there, then okay, well, forget it, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but I'm saying if you're putting Harrison Barnes back on that team,
yeah.
I'm taking Milwaukee.
And that's the thing. Like Golden State, they're gonna fill out the roster, and because they have a smart front office, and they have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond will probably stick around. They're gonna have to replace Iguodala soon, because they're gonna need somebody who actually plays during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Livingston ain't getting any younger. They're gonna need,
I say the same thing about about Steph and Clay too, man. Steph's over 30 now too, and to just assume that they're the same guys all the time, and because quiet is kept. If you really think about it, we talked about James Harden not ever really being the James Harden of the regular season in the postseason. Really haven't seen Steph be that guy either in the postseason. He's still fantastic because he's Steph.
he's
He's just so
better than
great.
James. Yeah, way
Yeah,
better
I
than
don't
James. I
know,
think
man. I don't know. I think
Steph.
he doesn't carry the same weight because he's played alongside Kevin Durant in the last three postseasons. And James Harden hasn't had that benefit of playing with somebody of that magnitude, except for the one time when he was a rookie, he's a six-man playing with him in Westbrook. But James Harden has been Batman, and Steph Curry of the last 3 years has been a guy and on the member of the Justice League. You know what I mean? So it's I think it's a little bit different.
Yeah, well, I am gonna go with. I think the Golden State Warriors are still probably going to be the best team in the league going forward, depending on however they handle their offseason. Even if they lose Durant, I don't expect they'll lose Clay. I expect that they'll fill out their roster and be totally fine.